Hello, this is Brother Joseph. Find the best lighting that might work. I wanted to talk to you about why I wrote the rules of the Brothers of St. Joseph. The idea, and I wrote it in the article, and I wrote it also in the rule itself, but just to share video-wise, perchance someone didn't read that particular. I wrote it because the time I decided that writing a rule for knights would be good was over 10 years ago. It was just before the Arab Spring, so-called Arab Spring. It's more of an Arab death. There was a lot of persecution of churches. I'd been following since the 90s. I'd been following various organizations that track persecution. I got involved in that when I first became a Christian because I started going to different churches, and I was very new to the Christian thing. At the time I was 21, and I remember missionaries coming in talking about persecution taking place in various places, and I was fascinated. And I kept thinking to myself, wow, this needs to be talked about more. So I got connected with the Voice of the Martyrs and other Open Doors, other organizations. And I've been following them so I could keep track, pray for the Christians, try to give a voice for the martyrs. But it escalated greatly, and Islam wasn't completely on my radar until 2005. I had a class in Islamic theology, and it was still a bit of a hot topic because of 9/11, 2001, what happened then. But I remember, I don't know if it was maybe the internet making it more known, but just all these different reports of church burnings and beheadings and pastors and priests disappearing, and it was alarming and it was concerning. And at the same time, I'm studying the Catholic Church and the traditions and the history, and getting involved in things Catholic, and later became Catholic, realizing they're the one true church. And I love the story of the knights, and I kept thinking to myself, where are these knights? Where are they? We need them today. Why aren't men stepping into the knighthood like they did back then? And then you find the orders of some of these knighthoods that survived, and they're no longer militaristic. They're nothing more than charity organizations. And that's terrible. You lost something good. And after a while of pondering this, and when the Arab Spring really kicked in and we started seeing Christians being slaughtered just wholesale, I said, well, if there's no militaristic knights around anymore, why not write an order for one, or a rule for one? Invite men of the church. My thought was, the men of that church could take vows to, by means of arms, by militaristic means, protect their own churches and their own people. That was the idea. And I called it the Poor Knights of St. David because, one, these men are poor like myself. They don't have the support of churches or wide organizations. And secondly, because I love the story of David after he was chased into the hills by Saul. He lived in the hills for a while. Men came to him, and he organized these mighty men and what he did with them is he protected the Israeli villages that were on the outskirts of Palestine and such, the Philistines. They would go in and protect them. He was doing what Saul was not doing, which Saul was supposed to be doing, which is protecting the Israeli villages. And I thought, isn't that where we are as men, as Christians, as the religious leaders do nothing to protect persecuted Christians? They don't give them a voice. They don't call for arms to go protect them. They ignore it largely. Isn't that what we are We're men who are trying to protect our own in light of the failings of our current religious leaders. It made sense, and that's why I went with that name. Now, personal issues rose up in 2014 while I was still putting together the rule that derailed everything, unfortunately. But after being able to stabilize my personal life, I was able to finally, after more than 10 years, finish the rule, and I'm glad. And I believe we need it, especially looking at the landscape now. Persecution is everywhere. And it's only increasing, and it's going to continue to increase, and boy, do we need it. So I'd ask you, please consider the rules, consider if you're called to such a thing. And it's as simple as this: taking a vow to protect your local church and the members there, the Christians there, with arms, with militaristic means. If you're called to that, heck, download the rule, read it, and write one of your own if you want. I don't care. I really don't. Just, we got to protect our own. We have to look after our own houses of worship. We have to look after our own members. That's what we need to do. Some of us are called to arms. Some of us are, like myself, are not necessarily. I'm in my 50s, and I know I'm called to preach and share the gospel, and I would if I were younger. So, anyways, well, that's all I have for you. I just wanted to turn you towards that. So, thank you, and as always, God bless.